Section 11 of the Grizzly, Our Greatest Wild Animal. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Stevie Sound. The Grizzly, Our Greatest Wild Animal, by Enos A. Mills. On the Defensive. On the defensive. In the grizzly bear, we have the leading animal of North America, and one who might well be put at the head of the wildlife on Earth. He is brain and brawn. He is self-contained and is prepared for anything. He makes an impressive appearance. He looks capable. He has bulk, agility, strength, endurance, repose, courage, enthusiasm, and curiosity. He is a masterful fighter if forced to defend himself. But a century ago, 50 years ago, or today, one could ramble the grizzly's territory and safely, unless attempting to kill a grizzly. The grizzly objects to being killed. If he is surprised or crowded so that he sees no escape, if the cubs are in danger or the mother thinks they are, or if the bear is wounded, there will be a fight or a retreat, and the grizzly will not be the one retreating. Almost every animal, wild or domestic, will fight if cornered, or if he thinks himself cornered. Before the days of the repeating rifle, the grizzly boldly wandered over his domain as absolute master. There was nothing for him to fear. Not an aggressive foe existed. But, being ever curious, he hastened to examine whatever interested him. The novel outfit of Lewis and Clark, which appears to have attracted unusual attention, even from frontier people, must naturally have aroused the highest pitch of interest in the numbers of bears congregated in places along the river. There were boats of odd type, some with sails, strange cargoes, men in picturesque accoutrements, and even a colored man. The frequent close approaches which the bears made in trying to satisfy their curiosity caused Lewis and Clark to think them ferocious. But is a grizzly bear ferocious? All the first-hand evidence I can find says he is not. Speaking from years of experience with him, my answer is emphatically no. Nearly every one whom a grizzly has killed went out with the special intention of killing a grizzly. The majority of people who hold the opinion that he is not ferocious are those who have studied him without attempting to kill him, while the majority who say that he is ferocious are those who have killed or attempted to kill him. During the greater part of my life, I have lived in a grizzly bear region. I have camped for months alone and without a gun in their territory. I have seen them when alone and when with hunters in Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Mexico, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Washington, British Columbia, and Alaska. I have spent weeks trailing and watching grizzlies, and their tracks in the snow showed that they often trailed me. They frequently came close, and there were times when they might have attacked me with every advantage, but they did not do so. As they never made any attack on me, nor on anyone else that I know of who was not bent on killing them, I can only conclude that they are not ferocious. Once I was running down a Wyoming mountain slide, leaping fallen, fire-killed timber, when suddenly I surprised a grizzly by landing within a few feet of him. He leaped up and struck at me with sufficient force to have almost cut me in two had the blow landed. Then he instantly fled. This, however, was not ferocity. Plainly he thought himself attacked and struck in self-defense. There are many naturalists and frontiersmen who affirm from first-hand experience that the grizzly is not ferocious, and following are given a number of quotations from a few of these men. John Muir, who spent about 40 years in the wilderness home of the grizzly bear, from 1868 to 1912, usually camped alone and never carried firearms. He has repeatedly called attention in his books to the wilderness as a place of safety, and has mentioned that grizzly bears are masters in attending to their own affairs. Also that bears have effectively suggested to wilderness visitors to do likewise. In, quote, Our National Parks, unquote, Muir says, quote, In my first interview with a Sierra bear, we were frightened and embarrassed, both of us, but the bear's behavior was better than mine. After studying his appearance as he stood at rest, I rushed forward to frighten him, that I might study his gait in running. But, contrary to all I had heard about the shyness of bears, he did not run at all, and when I stopped short within a few steps of him, as he held his ground in a fighting attitude, my mistake was monstrously plain. I was put on my good behavior, and never afterwards forgot the right manners of the wilderness." Unquote. Muir also says in, quote, "Steep Trails," unquote, quote, "There are bears in the woods, but not in such numbers nor of such unspeakable ferocity as town dwellers imagine. Nor do bears spend their lives in going about the country like the devil, seeking whom they may devour. Oregon bears, like most others, have no liking for man either as meat or as society, and while some may be curious at times to see what manner of creature he is, most of them have learned to shun people as deadly enemies." Unquote. Mr. William H. Wright spent most of his time from 1883 to 1908 as a hunter of wild animals, and especially as a hunter of the grizzly. In addition to being an observer of exceptional care while hunting and trapping, he spent some years in photographing grizzlies. He first studied them in order to hunt them successfully, then laid aside his rifle and hunted them to study them. From full acquaintance with the grizzly, Mr. Wright declares that he is not ferocious. He offers the following comment concerning his curiosity, a trait which early explorers mistook for ferocity. "We now know that the grizzly is chock full of curiosity, and that one of his habits is to follow up any trail that puzzles or interests him, be it of man or beast. This trait has been noted and misconstrued by many. So often have I seen this curiosity and proved it to be innocent that I have no fear whatever of these animals when indulging in this weakness of theirs. Time and again I have allowed one to approach within a few yards of me, and no calm observer who had watched a bear defying his own caution to satisfy his own inquisitiveness could mistake the nature of his approach." Unquote. Drummond, the botanist, had numerous experiences with grizzlies in the Rocky Mountains in 1826. He was familiar with their curiosity. He says that often they came close and stood up to look at him, but if he made a noise with his specimen box or, quote, even waved his hand, unquote, they ran away. James Capon Adams hunted and trapped big game from 1849 to 1859 in California and along the Pacific coast. He captured numerous grizzlies, both old and young, and literally domesticated them. He discusses their characteristics at length. He knew them intimately, and in summing them up after years of close association, he says of the grizzly, he did not invite combat. Kit Carson, another frontiersman of long experience with grizzlies, in writing of them does not call them ferocious. Dr. W. T. Hornaday knows the grizzly in the wilds and has long and intimately known him in the zoo. In The American Natural History, Dr. Hornaday has the following, quote, "I have made many observations on the temper of the grizzly bear, and am convinced that naturally the disposition of this reputedly savage creature is rather peaceful and good-natured. At the same time, however, no animal is more prompt to resent an affront or injury or punish an offender. The grizzly temper is defensive, not aggressive, and unless the animal is cornered or thinks he is cornered, he always flees from man." Unquote. The early explorers were warned by the Indians that the grizzly was, quote, "an awful and ferocious animal." Unquote. All the early writers had the preconceived belief that the grizzly was ferocious. Many of these writers never saw a grizzly, but wrote down as fact the erroneous conclusions of the Indians. The few writers who did see a grizzly evidently judged him largely from these preconceived ideas. Even Lewis and Clark describe a number of the grizzly's actions and call him ferocious when the very actions which they describe simply show him as being curious, interested, or, at worst, excited at their strange appearance. They misinterpreted what actually happened. A few sentences from Audubon well illustrate the wrought-up frame of mind of many hunters and authors when hunting or writing about the grizzly. Audubon says, quote, "While in the neighborhood where the grizzly bear may possibly be hidden, the excited nerves will cause the heart's pulsations to quicken, If but a startled ground squirrel run past, the sharp click of the lock is heard and the rifle hastily thrown to the shoulder before a second of time has assured the hunter of the trifling cause of his emotion." Unquote. This suggests emotion, but not accuracy. In summing up the animals of the North and West in 1790, Edward Euphreville wrote of the red and the grizzly bear that, quote, "Their nature is savage and ferocious, their power dangerous, and their haunts to be guarded against." Unquote. In 1795, Sir Alexander Mackenzie recorded the following, quote, "The Indians entertain great apprehension of this kind of a bear, which is called the grizzly bear, and they never venture to attack it except in a party of at least 3 or 4. Unquote. Henry M. Brackenridge, author of Views of Louisiana, wrote the following from hearsay, quote, "This animal is the monarch of the country which he inhabitates. The African lion or the Bengal tiger are not more terrible than he. He is the enemy of man and literally thirsts for human blood. So far from shunning, he seldom fails to attack and even to hunt him. The Indians make war upon these ferocious monsters with ceremonies as they do upon a tribe of their own species, and in the recital of their victories, the death of one of them gives the warrior greater renown than the scalp of an enemy. He possesses an amazing strength and attacks without hesitation and tears to pieces the largest buffalo." Unquote. The first paragraph which Lewis and Clark wrote concerning the grizzly, April 29, 1805, says, quote, "We proceeded early with a moderate wind. Captain Lewis, who was on shore with one hunter, met about 8 o'clock 2 white bears. Of the strength and ferocity of this animal the Indians had given us dreadful accounts. They never attack him but in parties of 6 or 8 persons, and even then are often defeated with the loss of 1 or more of the party. Having no weapons but bows and arrows, and the bad guns which the traders supply them, they are obliged to approach very near the bear, and as no wound except through the head or heart is fatal, they frequently fall a sacrifice if they miss their aim. He rather attacks than avoids man, and such is the terror which he has inspired that the Indians who go in quest of him paint themselves and perform all the superstitious rites customary when they make war on a neighboring nation. Hitherto those we had seen did not appear desirous of encountering us, but although to a skillful rifleman the danger is very much diminished, yet the white bear is still a terrible animal. On the approach of these 2, both Captain Lewis and the hunter fired, and each wounded a bear. One of them made his escape. The other turned upon Captain Lewis and pursued him 70 or 80 yards, but being badly wounded he could not run so fast as to prevent him reloading his piece, which he again aimed at him, and a 3rd shot from the hunter brought him to the ground." Unquote. Below are 2 additional paragraphs from the Journal of Lewis and Clark. These show that the grizzly was most wide awake and curious, and also that he was not accustomed to being afraid. Quote, "The bear which gave so much trouble on the head of the Missouri are equally fierce in this quarter. This morning one of them, which was on a sandbar as the boat passed, raised himself on his hind feet, and after looking at the party, plunged in and swam towards them. He was received with 3 balls in the body. He then turned around and made for the shore. Towards evening another entered the water to swim across. Captain Clark ordered the boat towards the shore, and just as the bear landed, shot the animal in the head. It proved to be the largest female they had ever seen, and so old that its tusks were worn quite smooth." Unquote. Quote, "Just as he arrived near Willow Run, he approached a thicket of brush in which was a white bear, which he did not discover till he was within 10 feet of him. His horse started, and wheeling suddenly round, threw McNeil almost immediately under the bear, who started up instantly, and finding the bear raising himself on his hind feet to attack him, struck him on the head with the butt end of his musket. The blow was so violent that it broke the breech of the musket and knocked the bear to the ground, and before he recovered, McNeil, seeing a willow tree close by, sprang up, and there remained while the bear closely guarded the foot of the tree until late in the afternoon. He then went off, and McNeil being released came down, and having found his horse, which had strayed off to the distance of 2 miles, returned to camp. These animals are, indeed, of a most extraordinary ferocity, and it is matter of wonder that in all our encounters we have had the good fortune to escape." Unquote. The grizzly was introduced to the world by Governor DeWitt Clinton of New York, who appears to have taken his information from the Journal of Lewis and Clark. In the course of an address before the Literary and Philosophical Society of New York City in 1814, he completely misinterpreted the real character of the grizzly and popularized a number of errors that not only were believed then but have survived to this day. The real grizzly is a distinguished character, but the grizzly as commonly described by tongue and story, well, there ain't no such animal. Governor Clinton, in discussing the work in store for the coming naturalist, said, quote, "There is the white, brown, or grizzly bear, the ferocious tyrant of the American woods. It exists, the terror of the savages, the tyrant of all other animals, devouring alike man and beast and defying the attacks of a whole tribe of Indians." Unquote. Few people realize to what extent these inaccurate words have discouraged outdoor life and how enormously they have contributed to the output of fictitious nature writing. The Indians had a profound respect for the fighting efficiency of the grizzly. When one of them killed a grizzly, he triumphantly wore the claw as a medal for rare bravery. The grizzly has a head and a hide that the Indian could rarely penetrate with either an arrow or a spear. We may readily believe that the grizzly defied the attacks of, quote, "a whole tribe of Indians," unquote, as Governor DeWitt Clinton said. He would defy a whole tribe of Indians or a score of white men with similar weapons today. So too would the elephant, the African lion, or the tiger. With the rifles used at the time of Lewis and Clark, it was necessary for the hunter to approach close to the bear that the bullet might have sufficient velocity to penetrate a vital spot. The rifles being only single shot, the hunter was exposed to the assault of the bear in case his aim missed or the shot was ineffective. It is not surprising that in most cases, those attempting to kill the grizzly either were overpowered by him or succeeded only through force of numbers and with the loss of some of the assailants. But the ability of the grizzly to withstand such attacks and to defend himself has been confused with ferocity. The grizzly is a fighting machine of the first order, and with the weapons of 2 or 3 generations ago, he often sold his life most dearly. In a short time, the grizzly had the reputation of being a terrible fighter, and along with this, he was given the reputation of being ferocious, of being an awful hunter of man. For the grizzly to repel effectually those who went out to attack him is a very different thing from his going out to hunt and to attack people who were not molesting him. This latter he has never done. The words of Umfreville, Mackenzie, Brackenridge, Clinton, and Lewis and Clark bring out strongly that the grizzly is a fighter, formidable, perhaps unequaled. Their opinion on this point is supported by ample first-hand testimony down through the years, from all over the grizzly territory. But it has not been established that the grizzly is ferocious, is seeking to kill. No, the grizzly does not look for a fight. He is for peace at almost any price. The grizzly fights in self-defense. Men do the same. A man is not criminal for fighting in self-defense. Neither is the grizzly. For this self-defense fighting, the grizzly should not be put in the criminal class. Quote, "The worm will turn," unquote, is an old saying. All animals fight in self-defense, some more quickly than others. Few ever succeed against man. The grizzly often does. Apparently, the effective self-defense of the grizzly is responsible for his criminal reputation. It is common for those who believe that the grizzly is ferocious to believe also that he eats human flesh. There is no known instance of his having done so. We are now hearing that the Alaska bears are especially ferocious. Yet in Alaska at the present time, and for many years in the past, the bear trails are concealed as much as possible by being in the woods. This would prevent the bear on the trail being readily seen by man. Along the sea, where much bear food is cast ashore, the trails are not upon the open beach but some distance away behind the trees. The bears depend on scent to tell them if there is anything along the shore to eat. Both their trails and their daily life in Alaska conclusively show that their chief concern is to keep away from, and out of sight of man. The experience with bears in the Yellowstone Park demonstrates that the grizzly is not ferocious. The park had a numerous grizzly population when it was made a wildlife reservation. The people who in increasing numbers visited the park carried no firearms, and they were not molested by the grizzlies, yet grizzlies were all about. After some 20 years of this friendly association of people and grizzlies, a number of grizzlies, dyspeptic and demoralized from eating garbage, and annoyed by the teasings of thoughtless people, became cross and lately even dangerous. But these bears cannot be called ferocious. Eliminate the garbage piles and cease harassing the bears, and they will again be friendly. The grizzly bear has been a golden gift of the gods for the countless writers of highly colored alleged natural history. There is a type, too, of wild fiction writers of the Captain Mayne Reid class, whose thrilling stories of the grizzly and other wilderness animals are purely fictitious, and though not even pretending to be fact, appear to have been taken seriously by thousands. So prolific and continuous has been the output of these writers that facts have been lost, and it is practically impossible for the average individual to know the real grizzly bear. This comes near to being the immortality of error. It is a national misfortune that the overwhelming majority of people should be imposed upon with erroneous natural history. The destiny of the human race is intimately tied up with nature, and for anyone to misunderstand the simple facts which unite us with nature is to be out of harmony with the whole scheme of things. An accurate knowledge of natural history has an important place in guiding the judgments of our race. Because of their intimate knowledge of the grizzly bear, James Capen Adams, William H. Wright, and Philip Ashton Rollins admired this animal. It would be a glorious thing if everyone appreciated the real character of the grizzly bear. A changed attitude toward him, the great animal of the outdoors, might cause the wilderness to appear to all as a friendly wonderland. End of section 11.